Yeah, so we're gonna switch gears a little bit and have a conversation with a couple guys that are doing some pretty cool stuff. Really, this whole influencer space is an interesting one, and there's so many variations and so many things to like cover. So I'm excited to talk to them, excited to have them share their knowledge and kind of what they're up to, and hopefully inspire you guys with some of the stuff that they're doing and some of the things that they have to say. So I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. I'll let them fight over who goes first. But all right.
I'm Michael Shaw. I'm a micro influencer, if you will, in the space. Try to focus on mostly entertainment, nightlife, and now sports and fashion is kind of my circle. What my content is based on, but I build and develop content for pretty much anything.
Name of your company?
Amplify Culture is the business. So I'm actually separate. So I'm an individual entity, but I have another business with my partner who just showed up in the matching hat back there called Amplify Culture, and we kind of curate and throw events across the city. And on the back end with the promotion and social media aspect of it, I kind of headline and lead that piece of it.
So. Check. Okay. I'm the founder and CEO of a company called Trendsetters. The name is very to the point. We help brands understand and reach the Gen Z demographic, ages 12 to 26. Of course, things tend to spill outside of that. We work with venture-backed startups and Fortune 1000 companies like McDonald's, L'Oreal, PacSun, North Face. This year, added on Johnson & Johnson and Groupon, quite a few others that are slotted for next year. And, we work very much at the intersection as a derivative of Gen Z in all things social media, influencer marketing, paid media, you name it. And our influencer department is one where we actually work with 4,500 different influencers we have on our roster, and we do some interesting things there. And our department heads are all former influencers themselves. One of the things we believe is the best way to know it is if you've done it before. And that's a little bit about how we're doing things differently in the influencer marketing space. And it's seen in some of the campaigns we've done with really notable brands.
Yeah, when you introduced yourself, you didn't start with your name. I don't know if you caught that or not.
The name doesn't even matter as much, right? But
fair enough.
My name is Jake Bajorseth. Yeah.
All right. So Jake, how'd you get started? So are you the founder of the company?
Yeah.
How'd you get started?
Yeah, so I was 18 years old, born and raised in Kansas City, went to Aquinas and then Blue Island North for high school. After I graduated, didn't want to go to college, went to KU. My parents kind of convinced me to go there. First week on campus, I had been doing some things on Snapchat, built up a large following there. And I somehow got a meeting through some contact with the corporate marketing team at Noodles. So I jump on a call with Noodles & Company. I skip my class because it's syllabus week. Who cares, right? And on that call, I prepared a 1-hour presentation all about Snapchat. And immediately the conversation, 2 minutes in, of which I spent so long in this presentation, became not about Snapchat at all. They were 100% just asking me about myself and other people my age, young people essentially. Asking me, hey, do young people, do they like pad thai or mac and cheese? And I'm sitting there like, I don't have the data in front of me. So I'm just kind of, off the cuff. I'm like, well, maybe it's pad thai because we're the most diverse generation, but also maybe it's mac and cheese because we're nostalgic. We have mental health problems. Maybe that like soothes our like depression a little bit, like, some Kraft mac and cheese. And so immediately after that call, I go, what is my generation born in 1999? It says Gen Z. And I go, that's the business that is going to write my ticket, not having to go to college. And I worked on that business full time. Used to drive from Lawrence back to Kansas City, stacked all my classes on Tuesday, Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I would crash actually at Eli's place on Troost, literally on his couch. I couldn't afford anything else and couldn't tell my parents as well. And built the origins of the business. And then that summer went full time with it. And we're now 5 years into it.
So Mike, tell me, so for the average person, like what's an influencer? Like, how do you see that?
Man, that's a terrific question. I think it's someone that connects people. I think that's the best way to explain an influencer. Whether it's through content or through who they are, you know what I mean? Like I kind of do a lot of different things, but I think my influence is built on me being a personable person. So, and I connect people through that, if that makes sense. So for me personally, I think it's a connector of people. That's what influencer does.
And so, like, I see, when a lot of people hear about influencers, you hear, like Kylie Jenner and, LeBron James, or like these people who maybe do product placement, but like at this scale. So I would assume micro influencer is somebody that has maybe smaller audience, but more connection to the audience. Is that a way to think about it?
Yeah, for me, that's how my following is built. Is through real, more genuine connection. Like I said, I've developed my following and my content through actually like making content with people. So I started behind the scenes doing a lot of camera work, and then realized that like I could kind of create my own face with it. And from there, it was more of like, well, I like to connect. I like talking to people. So why not find a way to connect people? I was in the scene, the nightlife scene in particular, and I was just taking pictures of everybody with everybody, anybody who wanted to take a photo. It's like, you just tell a girl that you're going to take a photo. They love it. You know what I mean? And it snapped. Like, man, this is cool content. The clubs, the bars, they love it because they're getting content of people having a terrific time at their space. And from there, everyone's like, hey, every time I get stopped out, it's like, hey, can we take a picture now? Because they're like, man, I want to be a part of your content in general. So,
but the thing, you were just capturing authentic moments. Like,
exactly.
It's
candid. It's quite literally.
Right.
Candid moments of people having a terrific time. And it's gotten more uniform as I've developed, you know what I mean? But the root of it all was really that of just being able to capture those quick moments. Sure.
So Jake, for you, how did you go about building an audience? I think you referenced that you were building an audience before the Noodles and Company meeting. So how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, so I ran a lawn care company in like middle school, high school with like a lot of entrepreneurs. That tends to be like the first business, right, or shoveling snow or whatever. And so my dad was a financial advisor, so I had all this extra money, and so he told me to save it, but I'm a teenager, so I'm going to do the opposite. I was like, I need to burn through this cash. What is the best way for me to burn through this cash? Let me start this media brand thing on Snapchat. And this was before, I had no idea what an influencer was, it was happening on Instagram at the time, but 2015, 2016, still super early. So I had grown this account on Snapchat called Trendsetters to tens of thousands of followers, and all these local businesses started paying me to promote their local business. And I'll never forget, the first one was actually Red Door Grill. They said, hey, we'll give you $10 for everyone that comes in using your thing, but here we cap it, and we capped it like within the first night in terms of our commission cap from it. And I go, wait a sec, I just made something like $300, which when you're 16 is like the most money in the world.
And I also learned about negotiating deals. I should have negotiated.
I learned that as well. Yeah. That was the tough part, but that's what really got me into it. So it was never a function of, oh, I'm going to be an influencer, or I'm going to like build an influencer type company, or I'm going to build a marketing agency. It was more so a derivative of, I was just doing dumb things with my friends and filming it and posting it online. And I think, even at its core, everyone in their own respect is an influencer. That's what drives, all sense of marketing. It's all about conversations that take place in the real world. And that's often not talked about, in the digital and social landscape. But at the end of the day, social media truly functions as a means to drive real world action. Yep. Whether that's ordering a piece of, clothing item, or, hey, I see, Mike and his crew out at this bar. Where am I going to want to go to next weekend? Like, that's going to be on my spot that I'm going to go to with my 12 friends. And so because everything is a derivative of that, I think it's important to look at influencers as not just people with thousands and thousands of followers, but anyone with any level of influence.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mike, when did you realize this was a business? Like, when did you realize, hey man, I can, not only am I going to get out from behind the camera and like start this thing, but like there's a business to be had here.
Yeah. So I started kind of where you're at. I started a small business coming out of college. I finished in marketing and emphasis in market planning. I would work with small businesses to develop their marketing and kind of more like grassroots, try to get them off the ground essentially. More business development more than anything. I had a turn when I started in 20, it would have been 2020. So the beginning or middle of pandemic, I guess. My mom actually is the one that got me into this. She decided to run for office. She didn't, she had like, she waited till like the last 6 months to run. So we actually ended up catching the guy, but we ended up losing very closely. I wrote all the marketing strategy. After that, all these politicians are like, hey, look, I need any strategy you can give me. And I started working in politics. And then consequently, ended up joining what's the Mayor Lucas's team. And so from there, it was just like, okay, like seeing how he moved, I'm like, man, like I'm doing this, but I'm also going out and having a good time. And I'm like, people are out using my name at the door. And I'm like, the guys are the security's letting them in. And you know what I mean? These people are making money off of me. And so it was literally just like a click of the finger. Like, you know what? I know what they need. I realized that I can monetize it. And from there, it was all about negotiation. And that's like the biggest key, I think, to influencing. Because it's so new, everyone's in a different lane. You don't know how much to charge or what it costs to do what you're doing. But I was always reasonable in the fact that I know that what they're going to pay me is what they're going to make back. And from there, I would say it's probably been about a year now, and it's just been kind of growing ever since.
So I would assume, and maybe this is an incorrect assumption, but I would assume, as a micro influencer, at a macro level, at the major level with I've got 2 million followers or something like that. The reason that a micro influencer would be more valuable because you have greater traction, even if it's a smaller audience, you have greater traction. Like you have more influence because it's a denser following or a more authentic following. Is that,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's almost like the more, micro influencers, they're going to have more of a pull with that audience base because, if you only have 1,000 followers on Instagram, you might personally know 80 to 90% of those people. Or you're part of Gen Z and you only know 50%, but 50% you're Instagram friends with. You know what I mean?
right?
So because of that, you're going to have a little bit stronger of a pull there. And then as an amplifier of that, the more niche and specific that type of content is, like some of the influencers we've worked with, we just launched a campaign in coordination with the state of California, actually. And like we had one influencer posting and he's all about like flexibility and he just does crazy flexibility type things. And yeah, he's got about 200,000, but like we decided to work with them because it's so specific and niche that we know that's going to resonate really well with that audience base.
Right. Yeah. So where's the fine line for someone that's an influencer between overselling something and becoming too, obnoxious about the influence that they're trying to peddle, if you will, versus it being sticking to that thing that built your audience? Like, how do you navigate that fine line between those things, between selling and just managing an audience?
Ooh. It's actually funny. I'm going through that now. As I'm transitioning my content, I recently have gotten a lot of brand deals, hence the clothes I'm wearing, where they want me to wear it out. I think for me, it's, and I think this is for most Gen Zers, I think we gravitate towards content that, one, we relate to, obviously, but two, that is still grassroots. Like it's very still to its core. I could go do a commercial and it'd be like, super formal and I'm working, like, for example, I did a placement for the Chiefs and it's like very uppity, but I also have content of us just hanging out and kicking it with, Chiefs players or, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The cheerleaders, for example, where it's very authentic. And I think that's the difference. That's the fine line between the two, is keeping your content or keeping yourself in that space of being authentic who you are.
Yeah, stay true to yourself and not the product that you're
right.
Yeah.
That you're promoting.
Jake, how about yeah.
Yeah, I would say it's number one, what is your level of creative control? So this is something that we deal with all the time, especially when you start working with very large companies that have and you got to work with their legal teams, which is the worst thing in the world. But when you start working with them, they want to give a script almost to the influencer, and we have to very quickly be like, not going to happen. There's no amount of money you can pay me in the world where I'm going to read a script for you.
Right.
And influencers are right.
It's not a commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is not a commercial, and it's a lose-lose. because it's bad for the influencer and it's not going to perform well for the brand. So you got to give creative control to the influencer, it's like anything creative. You got to define the constraints, but let them work within that box. Absolutely. And then as a second one, I would say it would be the negotiation beyond the transactional dollars. So dollars aside, assume we have that set. Say it's working with an apparel company and you're going to run a promo for them. Well, it could be, you going out to your audience, promoting it, and hey, if you use my code, you get 10% off. It could be a lot more creative than that, where you're really thinking, hey, as an influencer, what does my audience really want? Okay, it's the fall season coming up. No, I want to work with you. I want to hand select 9 products on your website. I want you to create a separate landing page with my username as that landing page. And I want only these 9 products featured. But because it's so specific and I'm going to go above and beyond for you, I want you to give my followers, instead of just 10% off, I want you to give 10 giveaways to people. And I want you to give 25% off. That's going to give your brand exposure. I'm limiting their product set. So if they drive back to your website and see another product they like, they're going to buy that. But when you negotiate beyond that, and that's a very simple method, now what we're seeing is, the world of creator economy, where you have Logan Paul launching his own Prime. And I think where we spot a really unique opportunity, especially with smaller businesses, if I were in your shoes, I would go to every bar and be like, no, I want you to name a drink after me, and I want a $2 royalty on that drink. And if you need to charge $15 for it, I don't even care. But I want $2 every time you sell that drink.
Did you hear that, Eric? I want a drink named after me.
I like that.
Jake, when did you realize that it wasn't just you, that there was a business, like you could start to aggregate others and front others in terms of the opportunity? When did that click for you?
Like other influencers?
Yeah, you were talking about how many you work with, and the agency model of you've basically become an agency for influencers, right? I mean, is that the...
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely part of that's definitely a large part of what we do. And I think I realized that because myself, I have switched entirely to, I stopped running that Snapchat thing immediately. I'm awful personally at every social platform. My team does it because I quickly learned, oh wait, I'm really good at the business side and the strategy part, but a girl that graduated with me, who now runs our influencer marketing, graduated high school with me. She had 1.9 million followers on TikTok when we hired her 2 years ago, and I was like, I could work the rest of my life and try to do that, and it would never happen. So let me go ahead and just work with people who are much more talented than me.
Okay.
And fortunately enough, it's worked out well.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Is this I assume I know the answer to this question, but maybe not. Is this a Gen Z phenomenon, or where's the future of this space go? I mean, is the next generation is easily influenced? I don't mean to make that sound like a disparaging comment, but are the ones, but what's behind Gens? What's the next?
Gen Alpha.
Gen Alpha.
Yeah.
Really?
So
they've already named them.
Oh yeah.
Damn it.
Yeah. I know.
All right.
Marketers ruin everything.
Yeah, they do.
Right,
So
right.
I can speak just from a data perspective. So what's crazy is for the first time for the past 50 years, if you asked a 12-year-old in an elementary school, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was typically always the one combination of the 3 A's, and it was always 1, 2, or 3 for these. It was an athlete, an astronaut, or an actor. For the first time in the past 50 years, it shifted over the past few years, and it is now YouTuber, number 1. Number 2, social media influencer. And then number 3, I think, is still athlete. But you see this significant shift where the number 1 profession kids want to be when they grow up, whether or not they're going to stay into that, because 25% of kids aren't going to become astronauts. Whether or not they're going to stick with that, it's the number 1 profession they want to be when they grow up. And so I think a derivative of that is they understand this world of influencing and have grown up in this social media era where this is kind of all we know. So I think it's a little bit more, it continues to be impactful across, the younger and younger you go. However, I don't think it's any different than how it existed prior or previously before the social media era, I think we now just have a name for it. I think now we just have a platform for it to exist a lot bigger than what it could have been in the past.
I think of it as like, there used to be socialites was the name for it before. I think realistically that's what you would call them now, or you used to call them. They're influencers now.
Yeah, I have a theory that like it used to be child actor, and now you see these like young kids as like unboxers, or like all these people with massive followings that are on TikTok or that are super young, and it's like, well, what's this going to do to them? Like as they get older, what job are they going to have? Are they going to just continue to do this, or are they going to become like the modern child actor where they were ruined at an early age, and now they've turned to a life of sex and drugs, or maybe they started there, I don't know.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah, that was terrible, wasn't it? It was just
Disney.
horrible. Yeah. Well, can we edit that part out, please? Yeah. So where's innovation in this space for you? Like when you think of innovation, like where do you see that like coming in, and how do you see that in the like going forward for your business?
I gotta think about it.
Yeah, so I see innovation in a couple ways. For one, for us, what we project, so conservative projections pretty much map out that 50% of the Fortune 500 will be replaced about every 10 years. Now, if you add an accelerating factor to that, it's closer to 7.5 to 8. We're pretty bullish that that's likely going to be closer to 5 years. And when we look at specifically Fortune 1000 consumer brands, we think the majority will be replaced and or wiped out within really the next 5 to 7 years, closer to 90%. And so the problem is when you look at brands like Coke, Pepsi, P&G, Unilever, Kellogg's, General Mills, so on, anyone who owns a retail shelf, the problem with those business models, ironically enough, is like they were so dominant because you owned shelf space. However, shelf space has shifted to what is shelf space on your phone, what will become your watch, what will become your biometric chip you put in your body, what will become your VR headset. And so when the framework moves to that, it matters less about the only real moats that these brands have is like, back in the day, radio, television, these platforms were so expensive to advertise on that if you were a small business trying to compete with the big boys, you couldn't afford to. And so now any kid with $20 can launch a Shopify store, drop ship merch from China, and immediately compete with the biggest fashion brands in the world. And so because supply chain will evolve and innovate to the point where it's less of a moat that these brands have, what we are bullish on is that the creator economy, whoever owns attention, is going to be the winner. So if you have attention in the world of social media, could be in real life, it doesn't matter. If you own attention, you will win because you will find a way, like yourself and so many others have done, you will find a way over time how to monetize that attention most effectively.
But isn't like the attention span right now humans have the attention span of a gnat now, right? Yeah. Like, and so how valuable is that really? Because it doesn't have an expiration date and isn't just like you see industry cycles that are getting, shorter and shorter and shorter in terms of industries, not just businesses and the turnover of Fortune 500. You see entire industries collapsing in that short time frame, but isn't that because like consumer attention spans are just...
So while attention spans are certainly short, Joe Rogan's podcast that'll be 2 hours long will still get tens of millions of viewers.
But is he going to be a thing in like 2 years?
I think movies have stood the test of time. We haven't seen Avatar's going to come out later this year. It's probably going to be 3.5 hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I'll go.
I'll go too. So it's less about attention span and more about how do you build a relationship with your audience beyond a 15 or 5 or 10 second video. And the way you do that is you need to pull them into other streams of content, other ways to engage with you beyond just that of a social platform. And then, what we always tell all of our influencers is do not be reliant on one platform, because you could say the wrong thing on TikTok and get banned tomorrow. You could say the wrong thing on Twitter And well, now that Elon's in charge, you're probably not
You
going to
say anything you want now.
say anything.
Right.
But anyway, the algorithm will deplatform you. So the best thing you can do is diversify your platforms and look for ways to engage with your biggest fans, pull them into communities, offer things to them. One interesting thing that our head of influencer marketing manager, Hanson, used to do when she was full-time being an influencer, she would do these live streams. And if you donated, one of the TikTok things, like a red box or something, which was worth maybe $2, she would, sign your name on the wall behind her. And then, hey, if you donated something worth $25, she would sign it, one of her T-shirts, and send it to you. Like crazy stuff. But that's I think what we're gonna see happen.
Mike, I tried to buy as much time as possible there. All right.
He answered the question perfectly. And I still don't know. No, just kidding. It's a couple things really, and it kind of I'll piggyback off what he said. Keeping engagement is going to be the biggest key. I'm learning now. My Chiefs deal was predicated on us doing more long form content, and the research, and you could probably attest to this, is showing more short form is what the answer is. So, and I'm going through the same thing. He's talking about this legal battle of like the content that I'm giving them that's coming back. The NFL has a problem. The Chiefs have a problem. And now the videos, what were an hour and a half, are like 20 seconds,
Yeah.
Now, granted, on Instagram, TikTok, that may work. You know what I mean? That'll probably do the trick, which then we could drive to YouTube or whatever platform we choose to disperse this information on. But to piggyback on what you said, I've learned my innovative thing has been getting more engaged with my followers by doing giveaways targeted to a specific audience that I'm carrying. So, for example, because I do events, we did a fashion show for Halloween. I hosted a fashion, or I didn't host, but I promoted a fashion show. And we did a targeted giveaway to a specific group in that fashion industry that I've kind of delved into lately. And it did very well. Have a partnership with Made Mob, who's a local brand here.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing. We did a targeted giveaway for Chiefs tickets to help promote their Chiefs gear when it comes out, or when it came out at the time of the beginning of the year. And I think things like that are what's gonna keep changing. It also helps obviously monetize both ends of the spectrum. We were able to sell quite a bit. We had a discount code set for that. They were able to make quite a bit of money. Made Mob did, as well as the Chiefs. Obviously, they sold out that first game, and everyone was wearing Made Mob stuff. So it worked out. I think that's going to be the key.
So, how do you scale as an influencer? Like, if you've got this, I'll call it niche audience, or right, like you have this authentic relationship with your followers, your fan base. How do you scale? Is it more deals? Is it more brands that you interact with? And then you run the risk of like becoming kind of a NASCAR, like I've got logos all over me and, on tattoos on my face of, Krispies or, like whatever it might be. How do you scale a business like this as an influencer?
You may go. Okay. So for me, I'm in that process of changing that. Content, especially with like, the platforms, is all built on algorithm. I started in a very specific niche and I've now opened it. So I've had like this last of October has been slow compared to what I was doing before. My results have been slow because I'm changing the content that's being driven. So I'm not getting as many views as I was prior because I've changed it. What I want to do, and this is just me in particular, I think if you keep it broad but have very specific content under that, it'll eventually grow itself. It takes time for any of this to do any of this anyway. For me, I'm opening it to entertainment so that I can fit things like sports, things like events. Entertainment kind of encapsulates the fashion world. People dress to go to the games. You know what I mean? With the brands that I'm working with on the fashion side, that's where I plan on kind of broadening it out and kind of, I guess, redeveloping there. I think that's going to be the biggest issue, though.
Yeah, I see it as continue to grow on the platform that you dominate best, diversify beyond that platform, but make sure that doesn't diminish nor harm your content value on that one platform. Look for ways to partner with brands that align really well, not just with you personally, but more importantly with your audience base. And go out and actually do outreach to the brands that you want to work with, as opposed to, you know, waiting for them to come find you. Because you'd be surprised. I mean, you know, like a lot of brands just aren't able to do the right search filters to like find the right people. And then finally, I think it's monetize on your own accord without a brand. You know, that could be selling merch, could be throwing events, could be, you know, doing cameo videos. Like however you got to monetize on your own accord, the sooner that you can do that, the better. And you don't have to force it onto people, but just have it there and see if you have buyers for it till we can play with it. Because, you know, you got to understand that if you're getting 100,000 to 1 million views per month on a social media platform, you have a sizable audience to be able to test things that a lot of people would pay a lot of money to be able to just test out what's going to work.
What'll work, absolutely.
I heard something today I hadn't heard before. It was a speaker at a luncheon, Omar Johnson. He was talking about, he always get at, he you know, this one of the like world's greatest marketers, right? And he always gets asked if whatever he's speaking about, is it going to be is it going to be B2B or B2C? And he's like, all of it is B2H. It's all business to human, right? And no matter what you're selling, it's all business to human. It's all about people, that kind of thing. And you said something, Jake, that made me remember that, because you talk about it's important to know what your audience will buy or what they're interested in. How do you stay in touch with that, right? Because they follow you. How do you know what they like? Is it just because that's what you like too? It goes back to like, do you know what I mean? Do you like mac and cheese, or do you like, you know, like it goes back to the original question that you were talking about. Like, is it what you like or is it what they like? And how do you know what they like?
Yeah. So we worked with this guy recently. His name's Tom Turich. He's the 10th person ever to walk across the entire earth. First dog to do it as well, by the way, which is super cool. I forget his dog's name. And, you know, he was thinking about, he's starting to do speaking gigs and other things and trying to figure out what his message should be. And so we were on a call with him and I just said, well, Tom, you have hundreds of thousands of followers. Just make a video, say, hey, like say exactly what you just told me. Hey, I'm starting to do speaking gigs. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do, but I'm trying to dial in on my message. I go, say exactly that. And then ask your audience what they took away from following your journey. And then read through the comments and see what stands out. And then that'll be the winner right there. So it's as much as just asking. And I think audiences and communities will greatly appreciate that. So you can look at, you know, data in terms of demographics and geography and female, male, and all this other stuff, but in interest and activity. But really what matters most is the quantitative feedback that you can get that no brand in the world has access to.
So if I hear that right, it's important to like the engagement with your audience, not just the following, but like your engagement with them is super important.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's
if you can make it a two-way street.
Yeah. I think for Gen Zers, that's the key. They like, and I think this comes out of like and I hate to bring up the Kardashians this way, but it feels superficial by their shows. And, you know, we hit that era of like everyone had a reality TV show and it felt very superficial. So again, back to the socialite versus influencer thing, being organic in your content and like being an organic influencer, someone I really don't know. I'm having a bad day. I don't know what I'm thinking. You know what I mean? That's the difference, I think, in what will help obviously grow your following in general, but also that improves engagement, which therefore monetizes it all together.
It's gotta be super uncomfortable though, right? Like, cause you're to really have that authenticity is the thing that keeps coming up, but to be authentic, like you have to show both sides. You can't just be the person on social media that we all see, like that everything they do is the best thing in the world and my life is so perfect. And it's like, I hate you because that's not true. Like, show me your real side. Like, show me who you really are. That's the key to like what you're talking about, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I think for me, it's like, if you go look now, like it's like, oh, my life is lit. That's what I get all the time. Oh, his life, he's always out. We never see him like at home.
Dude's never
Which
hungover, but he's at every party. It's crazy.
Which is partially true, but I think a part of it for me is like, because I'm calculated in what I'm doing, I could go have a great time and be social and create some great content and not have a drink. And now I'm not going home hungover or drunk. You know what I mean?
Does it feel like work for you when you do that?
It does. I've been on like an 8-week tour, it feels like, of hosting events, doing a bunch of different like speaking things like this. It can be when your mind is on creating content.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started, it was like, just like I said, just organic, like I'm capturing candid moments. And then when people approach you for like events, they want you to do this, and they want very specific. It does feel that way. But to be honest, I like to do it anyway. So at the end of the day, I'm not complaining either way. You know what I mean? I do this full time now. I don't have to work. This is what I do. I have to get paid to party. This point and make content. You know what I mean? So,
First world problems, man.
Right,
Yeah,
first
for
world
sure,
problems.
for sure.
right, absolutely.
So, Jake, you brought up VR, and what's that start to look like for this space, right? Does it just expand the opportunity, or does it create an entirely different, like, wow, I've been full of puns tonight, the entirely different dimension of the work? Yeah, like
Literally, yeah.
Literally.
No, I mean, I think it accelerates just as the internet and then social media was a push from Web 1 to Web 2, just as that each one of those, if you follow a Moore's Law trajectory, I would say created the same equivalent for that of advertising. Not necessarily when it comes to spend or, some of these other calculations, but in terms of like potential pockets for marketing and advertising to exist, and platforms and apps and so on. I think in VR, it will exist at some point within that same realm. The same could be said for augmented reality, but I think augmented reality will look literally a little bit different than that of VR, and I think they should be treated separately because it has a little bit more of a localized feel. You can do some things differently there, but I think both of those things are on the horizon. I can tell you, like, it's similar to conversations I had with brands in 2018 when I was talking about Musical.ly, which was like, cool idea, Jake, but no, just no. And so that means we're maybe 3 to 5 years away. But ultimately we'll see. Meta's, whenever Zuckerberg's making a huge bet on something, I have fairly enough confidence through his tenure thus far to like relatively
dude's got a track record.
bet on it. Like, you might not like him, but he's pretty damn successful at what he does. And there's others as well working in that space. And what's interesting now, we're starting to see more of that happen out of East Asia. And so funny enough, like the way things used to be was, Western culture, Los Angeles most namely, like that would impact then and replicate over to Europe, and then that would spread east. And now what we're seeing in Japan, South Korea, some of these places, even China, we're seeing virtual influencers. We're seeing literally QSR type selling, but on live streams, but selling those products themselves, but on a social media or virtual reality live stream. And we're seeing literally virtually created characters sell out entire arenas, and then it's just lights displaying what that figure is. And so oddly enough, I think East is now going to travel west, and we're going to start to see some of those developments.
Yeah, that's wow, fascinating. That took me down the deepfake path. Like, what happens to influencers as deepfake becomes more prevalent? Like, is there, like, you can impersonate in a very real way an influencer. They don't even have to be the person anymore. You can put them in spaces that they would never go in, right?
Absolutely.
We had a debate on this stage when we did one of our first sessions. We were talking about real estate, the value of real estate in the metaverse. And I was ignorant enough to say I could go like make up my own house. Like, how valuable could real estate possibly be in the metaverse? Because you can build new stuff whenever you want. Like, it's all virtual. And somebody says, yeah, don't tell me that the lot right next to Snoop's house isn't going to be super valuable to have. Even in the metaverse, because everybody's going to Snoop's house in the metaverse. I was like, all right, that's fair. Like, I get it. You're right. I'll be at Snoop's house. That's cool.
Yeah.
How do you plan for that though? Like as in your business, like how do you plan for this new frontier of opportunity? Or do you care? Like, are you just so focused on kind of building what you're building and you'll figure it out as it starts to impact what you're doing?
For me, I'm in where I'm at. So I only because I'm only a year and a half in.
Mm-hmm.
And although I've already kind of, I guess, started my research, I don't think I'm there yet for me. But I think, so I'm 26, so I'm like on the edge. Like I still claim millennial. I don't care if anybody says I'm millennial. But
So lame.
yeah.
I still tell people I'm
go
not a
viral on
boomer too.
TikTok.
Yeah, not yet.
I try really hard to hold that as long as I can. Only because I know quite a few.
Hold on to it, man. Hold on to it.
I'm
It's
trying
like-
so hard. So for me, it's like it's still a new space that I'm delving into. If that makes sense. But
Yeah, I mean, the way we think about some of those things is and it's kind of a blessing and curse with our name being trendsetters. So now we're kind of like when the whole crypto Web3 thing happened, like
Yeah.
you
You
would
guys
be,
can see the future.
you know,
right.
I was literally asked by a Fortune 35 company. They were asking about how they could convert some of their physical. It's a pharmaceutical company, but they also do.
We
Consumer
can go figure out
products.
who this is.
Exactly. That's
Well,
why-
actually, they're all probably in the
That's why I
top
included
35. Yeah, yeah.
Fortune 35 because you can see it's around there. And they were literally asking me about like how they could get into NFTs like for their bit, and I was just, oh my,
Yeah. Right.
like but you guys are Gen Z, right? So this should be, and it's not exactly, but yes. So we think about it.
Everybody
and-
wants a Viagra NFT. I
Exactly.
mean, like seriously.
and so the way we think about it is like we want to be in the cutting edge, but not the bleeding edge. And we've seen a lot of agencies, a lot of other Gen Z companies, whatever, that shifted to a Web3 business model or to a crypto business model, which we had every potential to go down that path, and we chose not to, thankfully. But as long as we maintain the cutting edge versus the bleeding edge, where you've gone too far, now you're hurting from it. We want to prep and know, but we don't want to waste significant time, energy, or resources until our client partners are ready to go there. Because until they're ready to go there, it doesn't matter a ton to us.
So you do, or you're starting to do work in the sports arena, right? As part of entertainment. I assume you guys probably have some connection to kind of sports figures or sports influencers, maybe. How does NIL, like this whole like long tail of, the punter has commercials now. The long snapper has, you can sell donuts at the local donut shop, that kind of thing. Like, how does that impact what you guys do, or does it?
Yeah. I think it does. I started in like I actually went to KU too. Ironically, I played ball and
Rock chalk.
I actually started. I mean, just getting into this space, understanding that now. I think for me, I come from strong business owners and, like I said, politics. So understanding your value, not just as an athlete on campus, but in general, as even just as a student to that school, and not just how much you're paying, but understanding like as an athlete, like these guys are making so much money off your name. It's or not your name in some respects, your number,
Right.
as they like to say. I think I like NIL because we're on the precipice of it being something better. In terms of me personally, it doesn't necessarily affect me because I'm like in the same circle. As an influencer, we're all doing the same thing.
Right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Me busing into entertainment, into sports in specifics, working with the Chiefs and eventually Bud Light as well as we continue to grow our relationship as well. You see the development, you see the preparation. The biggest issue, and like we were talking about this before we got on, is a lot of these teams have trouble connecting to Gen Z, millennial, and minorities for the most part. So they're really looking to eat into that space. Was nothing better than having minority athletes do it because they're already in the space. You know what I mean? And so for me, I think that'd be the biggest thing. that would kind of correct I would see as an impact for me, but I'm not sure from a business standpoint how that look for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a unique opportunity. I can say, it's not something that we're overly obsessed about because, some of the best athletes, even at a college level, don't have huge social media followings.
Right.
And yet, like, if you look at UCLA, I'm like, look, I can find 100 other students that have a huge social media following compared to that athlete.
Right.
I'm not going to pay the extra fees to go through the NIL.
It's a different type of influence. It's not the number of followers. Yeah, it's their number or their performance. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think attaching a brand to that as well, you run some potential risk. So I think it's just a little bit risky. I think it's really good for athletes. And the way I look at it, I have a couple buddies playing college basketball right now, and I'll tell them bluntly, like, hey, if you don't think you're going to make it to the league, you should be like pumping social media content like crazy, because this can become your long-term career.
Yeah, take me in the locker room with you, man. I'll start following you.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, take advantage of it now for sure. So before we wrap this up, I want to kind of flip the script on this. So we've been talking about from an influencer's perspective, right? From your perspective as the influencer, micro influencer. I heard nano influencer today. It goes back to your everybody's an influencer kind of thing, I guess. What advice would you give to the brands about this space? It sounds like there's a lot of stupid stuff happening from the brand, which is the history of advertising. Like, there's a lot of followers and like, well, that worked for them, we'll do it too. No, that's not the way it works. What advice would you give to brands as they think about getting into this space and working with organizations like yours and people like you?
So for me, I think the first thing I'm getting as I go through the process is research. To your point, I'd proactively work with the brands. Like, I reach out to them. I have a strategist that's like she's been basically joined my team as kind of my manager and has been developing my own media kit. Everything is being drawn out and strategized for me so that I can focus on developing the content and continue to put my face in front of the camera. And I think the thing that I've noticed with a lot of the brands is they like I'll get a reach out, or like they'll reach out to me and they like, oh, I just saw you had a lot of followers. They found me in some app or some, like Shopify now allows you to find other collaborators or other creators if you have a Shopify account, if you sell through Shopify. And so they'll just go off of the numbers, the following numbers, but they don't know the type of content I create, or you know what I mean? And kind of back to your point of being selective of who you work with. I think that's the biggest thing that I would see personally that I've dealt with, is like, not that necessarily wasting my time. I'm always going to hear them out, but some of the things that I've been approached with, it's like, you haven't even seen my content. You don't even know that I wouldn't even be able to promote. My crowd won't promote to what you're looking for.
Right.
That. So from my perspective, that's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is we need to see brands be a lot more ambitious, and this could be the biggest brands in the world. It could be local small businesses. I think brands need to be a lot more ambitious in terms of how they work with influencers. Also understanding that influencer, you're trying to reach their audience. So you should probably work with that influencer to craft what that creative and that content and deliverable should be, as opposed to mandating that and giving them creative control to work with under. Look for collaborative partners as opposed to transactional ones, which is all too common in the space of, you got to fit into a quarterly budget and all this other stuff. It's like, no, just find a way to converse and get a deal done.
Yeah.
And then I think when it comes to brands being ambitious in the space, like right now, because it requires more effort than putting money into Google ads or running advertising on YouTube or running paid media, or, even I would argue running after you get the creative, it's, you click a few buttons and you're running ads on TV or radio, print, whatever, because it's like, oh, I have to go talk to people on a call. Brands are very very conservative when it comes to doing it. And I saw Denny's promoting this huge influencer campaign they did, and how well it went. And they were like, and we worked with 12 influencers. And I'm like, that would be like saying that we did this huge campaign on TV and like 100,000 people saw it. Like, no. Like, what are you talking about? So it's very bare bones. And we're kind of forgetting how the business actually works.
Right. Guys, thanks for doing this. I know you're both busy. I know, this stuff like this isn't always, it doesn't always fit into the schedule and fit into what you guys like to do. So thanks for sharing with the audience. Thanks for sharing with the crew here. And I appreciate you guys being here, and look forward to at some point having you guys back, finding out how it's going and like expanding on the topic. So